The transport ship landed on New Sparta with a soft hum. Princess Zarathax stepped out, her crystal-like body shimmering in the morning sun. She was tall and elegant, made of what looked like living diamond. Her people, the Veltar, were beings of pure energy who could take solid form when they wanted. Zarathax looked around at the human colony with disgust. Everything was dirty and rough. Metal buildings sat next to muddy roads. Humans in work clothes walked around carrying tools and boxes. The air smelled of fuel and sweat. This was nothing like her beautiful homeworld with its floating crystal cities. "This is where I must spend 100 days, she asked the transport captain. Her voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Yes, Your Highness," the captain said. He was nervous. "The Galactic Council has spoken. You must learn humility through work." Zarathax had been sent here as punishment. She had spoken against her people's ancient ways. She had questioned why the Veltar thought they were better than other species. The royal court was angry. They decided she needed to learn respect by working under the most primitive species they knew, humans. A woman walked toward them. She was short and thick with gray hair tied back tight. Her clothes were stained with oil and dirt. Her face was hard and serious. This was Commander Sarah Chen, the human who would watch over Zarathax. "So you're the princess," Sarah said. She did not bow or show any respect. "I'm Sarah, I run things here." Zarathax was shocked. Humans were supposed to bow to royalty. "I am Princess Zarathax of the Ethereal Dominion. You should show proper respect," Sarah laughed. "Here, respect is earned. You're just another worker now. Can you lift things? Can you fix machines? Can you follow orders?" "I am a being of pure energy," Zarathax said proudly. "I can move mountains with my mind. I can create matter from nothing. Your simple tasks are beneath me." "We'll see about that," Sarah said. "Follow me." They walked through the colony. Humans were everywhere, working hard. Some fixed pipes that carried water. Others repaired machines that cleaned the air. Children played in the streets while their parents worked. Everyone looked busy and tired, but also content. "Why do you live like this?" Zarathax asked. "Why don't you use robots or energy beings to do this work?" "Because we can't," Sarah said simply. "We're not energy beings. We don't have magic powers. We have to use our hands and our brains. That's what makes us human." They stopped at a large building filled with machines. The noise was terrible. Steam rose from pipes. Workers moved quickly between giant metal devices. "This is the power plant," Sarah explained. "It gives electricity to the whole colony. These machines break down every day. Your job is to help fix them." Zarathax stared at the complex machinery. "I could simply channel energy directly into your systems. Why use these crude machines?" "Because when you leave, we still need power," Sarah said. "We need things that last. Things we can understand and repair ourselves." A loud alarm started ringing. Red lights flashed. Workers ran toward one of the machines. Steam was shooting out of broken pipes. "Cooling system failure," someone shouted. "We need to shut down Reactor 3. Zarathax stepped forward. She could fix this easily. Energy flowed from her hands toward the broken machine. The steam stopped. "The pipes sealed themselves there," she said proudly. "Fixed." But Sarah grabbed her arm. "What did you just do?" "I repaired your primitive machine," Zarathax said. "How?" "Did you replace the broken parts? Did you find out why it broke? Did you make sure it won't break again?" Zarathax said nothing. She had simply used her power to make things work. She had not thought about how or why. Sarah walked to the machine and opened a panel. Inside, the parts were melted together in an impossible way. "This will break again in a few hours," she said. "And when it does, we won't understand why. You didn't fix it. You just hid the problem." The other workers gathered around. They looked worried. "Now we have to replace the whole unit," one man said. "That will take days. We'll have to run on emergency power." Zarathax felt confused. She had helped them. Why were they upset? "Your power isn't always the answer," Sarah said. "Sometimes the slow way is the right way. Sometimes understanding is more important than speed." That night, Zarathax was given a small room in the workers' quarters. It had a simple bed, a table, and a window. She was used to a palace with servants and luxury. This room felt like a prison cell. She lay on the hard bed and thought about the day. The humans worked so slowly. They used tools instead of power. They took time to understand things instead of just forcing them to work. It seemed so wasteful. But they had built this entire colony with just their hands and simple machines. They had created a place where families could live and children could grow. They had done it without magic or energy powers. They had done it by working together. Zarathax had always been told that humans were weak. They lived short lives. They had no special powers. They were primitive and crude. But if they were so weak, how had they spread across so many worlds? How had they built such complex societies? Maybe there was something she did not understand. The next morning, Sarah woke her before dawn. "Time to work," she said. "What will I do today?" Zarathax asked. "First, you'll help clean up the mess you made yesterday. Then you'll learn how the cooling system really works. You'll take it apart piece by piece. You'll understand every bolt and wire. When you put it back together, you'll know why each part matters." Zarathax wanted to complain. This was not the work of a princess. But something in Sarah's eyes stopped her. The human woman was not cruel, but she was firm. She expected Zarathax to learn. "Why are you doing this?" Zarathax asked. "Why do you care if I understand your machines?" Sarah was quiet for a moment. "Because understanding changes you," she said finally. "When you really know how something works, you respect it. You take care of it. You make it better." They walked back to the power plant. The broken machine sat waiting. Tools were laid out on a table. Sarah picked up a wrench and handed it to Zarathax. "Start with this bolt," Sarah said. "Turn it left to loosen it. Feel how tight it is. Think about why it needs to be that tight." Zarathax took the tool. It was heavy and cold in her hands. She had never used anything like it before. She tried to turn the bolt, but it would not move. "Harder," Sarah said. Zarathax tried again. Her crystal body was not made for this kind of work. The tool slipped. Her hands felt clumsy and weak. "I cannot do this," she said. "It is too difficult." "Everything is difficult at first," Sarah said. "But you learn. You get stronger. You get better." For the first time in her long life, Princess Zarathax of the ethereal dominion struggled with something simple. She could not fix it with power or magic. She had to learn to use her hands. She had to learn to be patient. And slowly, very slowly, she began to understand what made humans special. 20 days had passed since Zarathax arrived on New Sparta. Her crystal hands were scratched from working with metal tools. Her body ached in ways she had never felt before. The Veltar were not made for physical labor, but Sarah would not let her use her energy powers for most tasks. "Use the wrench," Sarah would say when Zarathax tried to fix things with her mind. "Feel the resistance. Learn why it's tight." Every morning, Zarathax worked in different parts of the colony. She cleaned water filters with her hands instead of purifying the water with energy. She carried supplies instead of floating them. She learned to read instruments instead of sensing problems directly. At first, she hated it. Her people back home lived in harmony with pure energy. They created beautiful art that existed in multiple dimensions. They could travel between stars by thinking about distant places. Why should she crawl around in dirty machines like an animal? But something strange was happening. Each day, she understood the colony a little better. She began to see how everything connected. The water system fed the air recyclers. The air recyclers supported the gardens. The gardens provided food and oxygen. Every part depended on every other part. "It's like a body," she told Sarah one day as they repaired a damaged pipe. "Every piece has a purpose." "Exactly," Sarah said. She seemed pleased that Zarathax was learning. When one part fails, you have to understand how it affects everything else. On day 25, disaster struck. Zarathax was learning to weld metal joints when alarms began screaming throughout the colony. Emergency lights flashed red. People ran in all directions. "Reactor breach in Sector 7, someone shouted over the noise. "All non-essential personnel evacuate." Sarah grabbed her tools and ran toward the danger. Zarathax followed, her heart pounding. They reached the main reactor building where thick smoke poured from broken windows. The air tasted of burnt metal and ozone. "What happened?" Sarah asked the chief engineer. "Control system overload," he said, coughing. "The safety circuits are fried. We've got maybe 10 minutes before the whole thing goes critical." Sarah looked at the damaged controls. Sparks flew from melted panels. The reactor was making a deep humming sound that grew louder every second. "We need to manually shut it down," she said. "But someone has to go into the radiation chamber." The engineers looked at each other with fear. Even with protective suits, entering that chamber could be deadly for humans. Zarathax stepped forward. "I can do it," she said. "Radiation cannot hurt my kind." "No," Sarah said firmly. "If you use your powers to fix this, you'll just make it worse. Remember what happened to the cooling system. But people will die. Zarathax said. Then we find another way, Sarah replied. She studied the damaged controls, thinking hard. Zarathax watched the human woman work through the problem. Sarah did not panic. She did not give up. She looked at each broken system and thought about how to work around it. There, Sarah said, pointing to a manual override switch deep inside the reactor chamber. If someone can reach that switch and turn it exactly 3 full rotations, it will trigger an emergency shutdown. I still say I should go, Zarathax insisted. I am immune to radiation, Sarah shook her head. The switch requires precise pressure and timing. If you turn it wrong, you'll cause an explosion instead of a shutdown. You need to understand the system, not just survive the environment. Then teach me, Zarathax said. Sarah stared at her. What? You have 2 minutes to teach me exactly how to operate that switch. Explain it like you've been explaining everything else. Make me understand. For a moment, Sarah hesitated. Then she nodded. The switch has 3 positions, she said quickly. Off, standby, and emergency. It's currently stuck between standby and emergency. You need to feel for resistance. Sarah explained every detail as fast as she could. How the switch would feel stiff at first. How to count the exact rotations. How to listen for the click that meant it was properly engaged. She made Zarathax repeat the instructions back to her. Remember, Sarah said as Zarathax put on a radiation suit. Slow and steady. Feel, don't force. Understand, don't react. Zarathax entered the reactor chamber. The radiation made her skin tingle, but it could not harm her crystal structure. She found the manual override switch exactly where Sarah had said it would be. The switch was old and corroded. For a moment, Zarathax wanted to use her energy to simply blast it into the right position. That would be fast and easy. But Sarah's words echoed in her mind. Feel, don't force. Understand, don't react. She placed her hands on the switch and felt carefully. Yes, there was the resistance Sarah had described. She turned slowly, counting each degree of rotation. The metal was warm and rough under her fingers. 1 full turn. The humming from the reactor changed pitch slightly. 2 full turns. She could hear cooling systems starting to engage. 3 full turns. And there was the click Sarah had promised. The reactor powered down safely. The alarm stopped. Emergency light switched to normal lighting. Zarathax had saved the colony. When she emerged from the reactor chamber, the workers cheered. Sarah smiled and nodded approval. But Zarathax felt something she had never experienced before. She had not just used her power to solve a problem. She had learned to think like a human. That evening, Sarah sat with Zarathax on a hill overlooking the colony. The lights of the settlement twinkled like stars. Why do you humans do this? Zarathax asked. You could live easier lives. You could stay on worlds that don't require so much work. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Because the hard things are worth doing, she said finally. When you build something with your own hands, it means more. When you overcome challenges, you become stronger. My people think strength comes from power, Zarathax said. Power without understanding is just destruction waiting to happen, Sarah replied. Real strength comes from knowing when not to use power. It comes from working together, learning from mistakes, building things that last. Zarathax thought about her homeworld. The Veltar lived for thousands of years, but they never changed. They never grew. They were the same today as they had been 1,000,000 years ago. Do you know why they really sent me here? She asked Sarah. Tell me. I suggested that our people should learn from other species. I said maybe we were not as perfect as we believed. The royal court was horrified. They said I had been corrupted by lesser beings. Sarah laughed. Corrupted by learning? That's the most human thing I've ever heard. What do you mean? Humans are curious about everything. We want to learn from everyone. We think every species has something valuable to teach us. That's why we get along with so many different kinds of people. Zarathax realized that in just 25 days, she had learned more about herself and the universe than in centuries of royal life. She was beginning to understand why humans were spreading across the galaxy, despite their short lives and limited powers. They did not try to control everything. They tried to understand everything. And understanding she was learning was the most powerful force in the universe. Sarah, she said, what will you teach me tomorrow? The human woman smiled. How to fail properly. What? Humans fail at things all the time. But we've learned to fail forward. To learn from mistakes. To get back up and try again. It's one of our best skills. Zarathax looked forward to tomorrow's lesson. For the first time in her long life, she was eager to make mistakes. 50 days had passed since Zarathax arrived on New Sparta. She no longer thought of herself as just serving a sentence. Every morning she woke up excited to learn something new. Sarah had taught her to read human technical manuals, to understand supply chains, and to work as part of a team. The princess had changed in ways that surprised everyone, including herself. Her crystal body had adapted to physical work. Her hands were steady with tools. Her mind had learned to think step by step instead of just using power to force solutions. "You're different," said Marcus, one of the colony engineers. "When you first came here, you acted like you were better than us. Now you work harder than most humans." Zarathax was helping Marcus repair a water recycling unit. She had taken it apart completely to understand how each piece worked together. "I am learning that there is no shame in honest work," she said. "Your people won't like that," Marcus warned. "The other alien ambassadors who visit here always keep their distance from manual labor." "My people sent me here to be humbled," Zarathax replied. "I think they will be surprised by what I have learned instead." That afternoon, Sarah found Zarathax in the colony's workshop. The princess was bent over a workbench designing something new. Her crystal fingers moved quickly as she drew plans on paper. "What are you working on?" Sarah asked. "An improvement to the air recycling system," Zarathax said excitedly. "I have been thinking about how my people's energy control could work together with human engineering. Look." She showed Sarah her drawings. The design combined Veltar energy manipulation with human mechanical systems. Instead of replacing human technology, it enhanced it. "The human system is reliable and easy to repair," Zarathax explained, "but it works slowly. My people's energy control could speed up the chemical processes without changing the basic machinery." Sarah studied the plans carefully. "This is brilliant," she said. "It keeps all the advantages of our system while adding the benefits of yours. I call it hybrid technology," Zarathax said proudly. Neither purely human nor purely Veltar, but something new. Over the next few days, they built a prototype of Zarathax's design. She used her energy powers to create precise electromagnetic fields that helped the recycling chemicals work faster. But the basic system remained mechanical and repairable by human hands. The results were amazing. The new system cleaned air 3 times faster than before, while using less power. Other colonists came to watch it work, amazed at what the princess had created. "How did you think of this?" asked Dr. Reeves, the colony's chief scientist. "From working with my hands," Zarathax said. "When you take apart enough human machines, you start to understand their principles. When you understand principles, you can improve them without destroying them." Word of the hybrid air recycler spread beyond New Sparta. Scientists from other human colonies asked for the design. Even some alien species expressed interest in learning about this new approach. But not everyone was pleased with Zarathax's innovation. On day 60, a message arrived from the Galactic Council. The Veltar royal court had heard about the princess's activities. They were not happy. "Princess Zarathax is exceeding the boundaries of her punishment," the message said. "She is to cease all technological development immediately and return to basic labor tasks." Sarah brought the message to Zarathax, who was teaching a group of human children about energy manipulation in the school workshop. "What does this mean?" Zarathax asked after reading it. "It means your people are scared," Sarah said. "You're showing that there's a better way than staying separate. That threatens their idea of superiority." Zarathax looked at the children around her. They had been so eager to learn. She had been teaching them simple energy exercises while they taught her about human creativity and curiosity. "I will not stop," she said quietly. "I have learned too much to go back to the old ways." That decision would soon be tested. 3 days later, long-range sensors detected a problem. A massive solar storm was approaching New Sparta. It would arrive in less than 48 hours and would be strong enough to destroy the colony's protective shields. "We need to evacuate," said Commander Torres, Sarah's superior. "The transport ships can take most people to the orbital station." "What about the colony itself?" Sarah asked. "It took us 10 years to build this place." "We'll have to abandon it," Torres said sadly. "The shields can't handle a storm this size." Zarathax had been listening to the emergency meeting. "What if we could strengthen the shields?" she asked. "Impossible," Torres said. "We've already pushed them to maximum capacity." "Not with human technology alone," Zarathax said. But what if we combined human shield generators with Veltar energy manipulation? She quickly drew her idea on the meeting room's display board. Instead of trying to block the solar storm completely, they could use energy redirection to guide most of the storm's power around the colony. The human shields would handle the reduced energy that gets through, she explained. My people's energy control would redirect the rest safely into space. Could that actually work? Dr. Reeves asked. I think so, Zarathax said. But I would need help from the whole colony. This isn't something I can do alone. Sarah smiled. That's the most human thing you've ever said. The next 36 hours were the busiest in the colony's history. Every person worked to modify the shield generators according to Zarathax's design. Engineers rewired power systems. Technicians installed new focusing arrays. Even the children helped by carrying tools and materials. Zarathax worked alongside everyone else, her royal status forgotten. She was just another pair of hands helping to save their home. Are you sure this will work? Marcus asked as they made final adjustments to the main shield generator. No, Zarathax admitted. But I have learned that humans try things even when they are not sure. You call it hope. When the solar storm hit, it was like standing inside a hurricane made of fire. The sky turned brilliant orange and red. Lightning crackled across the protective dome above the colony. Zarathax stood at the center of the shield array, her crystal body glowing with contained energy. She could feel the massive power of the storm pressing against her consciousness. For a moment, she almost gave in to the Veltar instinct to simply overwhelm the problem with raw force. But she remembered Sarah's lessons. Feel, don't force. Understand, don't react. Instead of fighting the storm, she guided it. She used her energy manipulation to create channels that redirected the worst of the solar wind around the colony. The human shields handled the reduced energy that penetrated her redirections. It worked perfectly. The colony survived without a single building damaged. As the storm passed and the sky cleared, the colonists cheered. They had saved their home through cooperation between human engineering and Veltar energy control. But Zarathax knew this success would have consequences. She had openly defied the Galactic Council's orders. She had proven that humans and Veltar could work together as equals. Her people would not forgive her for that. That night, as they celebrated in the colony's main hall, Sarah found Zarathax standing alone outside, looking up at the stars. Worried about what happens next? Sarah asked. Yes, Zarathax said. I can never go back to being who I was, but I do not know what I am becoming. Sarah put a hand on the princess's crystal shoulder. You're becoming yourself, she said. The real you, not the you that others expect. Zarathax thought about that. For the first time in her long life, she felt truly free. 75 days had passed when the ships arrived. Zarathax was in the workshop, teaching a mixed group of humans and visiting aliens about hybrid technology, when the alarms started ringing. But these were not emergency alarms. They were the diplomatic arrival signals. Sarah rushed into the workshop. Zarathax, you need to see this. They hurried to the observation deck. In space above New Sparta, a massive fleet hung like a collection of deadly jewels. Veltar crystal ships gleamed alongside the dark metal vessels of the Hegemony Council. There were at least 30 ships, enough firepower to turn the colony into dust. They've come for me, Zarathax said quietly. A communication signal came through. On the main screen appeared High Counselor Thexelar of the Veltar Court, along with Ambassador Corinth of the Galactic Hegemony. Princess Zarathax, Thexelar said, his energy form crackling with anger. You have violated the terms of your rehabilitation. You were sent to learn humility, not to contaminate yourself with primitive ideas. The Galactic Council has voted, Ambassador Corinth added. His species, the Xanthari, looked like tall gray insects. Your experiment in cooperation has gone too far. You are to return immediately for memory adjustment. Memory adjustment. Zarathax felt her crystal body go cold. They wanted to erase everything she had learned, everything she had become. I will not go, she said simply. Thexlar's energy form flared brighter. You forget yourself, princess. You are Veltar royalty. You do not belong among these short-lived creatures. These short-lived creatures have taught me more about life than I learned in 1,000 years among our people. Zarathax replied. Commander Torres stepped forward. With respect, Counselor, Princess Zarathax is under human protection during her sentence. She has 25 days remaining. Her sentence is terminated. Ambassador Corinth said coldly. The Council has determined that further exposure to human influence is dangerous to galactic stability. Dangerous to your control, you mean? Sarah said, joining the conversation. She's showing everyone that cooperation works better than separation. Silence, human, Thexler snapped. You have corrupted a being of pure energy with your crude material concerns. This ends now. The communication cut off. Moments later, another signal came through, this time broadcast to the entire colony. People of New Sparta, Ambassador Corinth's voice echoed through every speaker. You have 1 hour to surrender Princess Zarathax. If you refuse, we will take her by force. Any resistance will be met with appropriate responses. The meaning was clear. Submit or be destroyed. Emergency meetings began immediately. The colony's leaders gathered in the command center while families prepared for possible evacuation. We can't fight 30 warships, Commander Torres said. We have 3 patrol boats and some mining equipment. Then we give them what they want, suggested Dr. Reeves. Zarathax goes back, and we survive. No, Sarah said firmly. She's one of us now. We don't abandon our own. Zarathax listened to the humans debate her fate. They were willing to risk everything for her, even though she was not human, even though protecting her might mean their deaths. I should go, she said finally. I will not let you die for me. That's not your choice to make, Sarah replied. This is our home. We decide who belongs here. But you cannot win against such a fleet, Zarathax protested. Marcus, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. Maybe we can't win a direct fight. But humans don't always fight directly. What do you mean? Torres asked. Marcus pulled up a display showing the solar storm data from a few days earlier. That storm didn't just pass by randomly. It's part of a larger solar weather pattern. Another storm front is approaching from the opposite direction. Dr. Reeves studied the data. He's right. But this next storm is smaller. It won't threaten the colony. Not by itself, Marcus agreed. But what if we could amplify it? Redirect it? Understanding dawned on Zarathax's face. You want to turn the solar storm into a weapon. Not a weapon, Sarah corrected. A distraction. A way to even the odds. The plan they developed was desperate and dangerous. They would modify the colony's shield generators to create a massive energy pulse. This pulse would interact with the approaching solar storm, amplifying and redirecting it toward the enemy fleet. It won't destroy them, Marcus explained as they worked frantically to reprogram the shield systems. But it will disable their weapons and engines temporarily. Give us time to negotiate or escape. And if it doesn't work? Torres asked. Then we die trying, Sarah said simply. Zarathax worked alongside the humans, using her energy manipulation to fine-tune the shield modifications. But this was different from her previous help. This time she was not just contributing her power. She was using everything Sarah had taught her about human tactics, teamwork, and improvisation. The Veltar would never attempt something like this, she told Sarah as they calibrated the energy pulse generators. Too much uncertainty. Too much risk. That's exactly why it might work, Sarah replied. They won't expect it because they can't imagine thinking like us. As they worked, other colonists prepared for battle in their own ways. Children were moved to the deepest shelters. Emergency supplies were distributed. The few weapons the colony possessed were cleaned and loaded. But the most important preparation was happening in the communications center. Dr. Reeves was recording everything about the hybrid technology Zarathax had developed. If the colony was destroyed, at least the knowledge would survive. Why do you do this? Zarathax asked him. Why preserve knowledge when you might die in the next hour? Because knowledge is how humans live forever, Dr. Reeves explained. Our bodies are temporary, but our ideas can outlast stars. With 30 minutes left before the deadline, the modifications were complete. The amplified solar storm was ready to launch, but Zarathax had one more idea. What if we do not just redirect the storm? She said. What if we use it to send a message? What kind of message? Sarah asked. Zarathax's crystal body began to glow. A demonstration. Show the galaxy what humans and Veltar can accomplish together. Instead of simply disabling the enemy fleet, they would create something beautiful and impossible. They would use the solar storm's energy to paint pictures in space. Images of cooperation, of different species working together, of hope for the future. They'll think we're crazy, Marcus said. Maybe, Zarathax replied. But they will also see that we are not afraid. And sometimes showing you are not afraid is the same as winning. The enemy fleet waited in space above them, weapons charged and ready. In a few minutes they would demand Zarathax's surrender for the final time. But the princess was no longer the same being who had arrived 75 days ago. She had learned to think like a human while retaining her Veltar abilities. She had become something new, something unprecedented. She had become dangerous to the old order, not because of her power, but because of her ideas. And ideas, as Dr. Reeves had said, could outlast stars. Are you ready? Sarah asked as they took their positions at the modified shield controls. Zarathax looked around at the humans who had become her friends, her teachers, her family. They were about to risk everything for principles they believed in. I am ready, she said. The final confrontation was about to begin. The final communication came exactly 1 hour after the ultimatum. High Counselor Thexler appeared on screen again, his energy form crackling with impatience. Your time has expired, humans. Surrender Princess Zarathax immediately or face the consequences. Sarah stepped forward to reply, but Zarathax placed a gentle crystal hand on her shoulder. Let me speak to them. The princess stood before the communication screen, no longer the arrogant royal who had arrived nearly 100 days ago. Her crystal body was marked with scratches from honest work. Her posture was confident but not superior. High Counselor, she said calmly, I am no longer the princess you sent here. I have become something new. You have become corrupted, Thexler spat, but that can be corrected. Return to us and we will restore your proper thoughts. I choose to stay with the humans, Zarathax said simply. The energy being's form flared with rage. You dare defy the royal court? You forget your place, child. I have found my place, Zarathax replied. It is here, with people who value growth over tradition, cooperation over dominance. Ambassador Corinth's insectoid face appeared beside Thexler. Enough speeches. Attack formation, all ships. Take the princess by force. The screen went dark. Above New Sparta, 30 warships moved into battle positions. Their weapons powered up, ready to destroy anything that stood between them and their target. Now, Sarah whispered. Zarathax placed her hands on the modified shield controls. Around her, the humans operated their stations with calm precision. They had practiced this moment, but they all knew it might not work. The princess felt the approaching solar storm with her energy senses. It was smaller than the previous one, but still contained enormous power. She began to guide it, shape it, amplify it with the colony's shield generators, but instead of simply throwing it at the enemy fleet, she did something unprecedented. She turned the storm into art. Energy blazed across space in impossible patterns. The solar wind formed spirals and geometric designs that no natural phenomenon could create. Pictures appeared in the plasma. Images of humans and aliens working together, building things, learning from each other. The enemy fleet stopped their attack, stunned by what they were seeing. This was not a weapon. It was a message painted across the cosmos in light and energy. What is she doing? Thexler demanded over an open communication channel. She is showing you the future, Sarah replied. A future where different species help each other become better instead of staying separate. The energy display continued for 10 minutes. Zarathax shaped solar fire into scenes of cooperation, innovation, and hope. She showed the galaxy what could be possible if beings worked together instead of fearing each other. When the display finally faded, space was silent except for the normal hum of ship engines. The enemy fleet hung motionless, their crews trying to understand what they had witnessed. Impossible, Thexlar whispered. No single being could control that much energy with such precision. She did not do it alone, Dr. Reeves said, joining the communication. Every human in this colony contributed to what you just saw. Princess Zarathax provided the energy manipulation, but we provided the engineering, the creativity, and the vision. This changes nothing, Ambassador Corinth said, but his voice lacked conviction. The Council's decision stands. Does it? Asked a new voice. Another communication signal joined the conversation. To everyone's surprise, it came from Captain Velandra of the Crystalline Republic, one of the most respected neutral powers in the galaxy. Captain, Ambassador Corinth said nervously, this is not your concern. I think it is, Captain Velandra replied. Her species looked like living metal sculptures. My science officers have been analyzing what just happened. That energy display required cooperation between at least 6 different technologies. No single species could have created it alone. More communication signals joined the channel. Representatives from dozens of species had been watching the confrontation. Word was spreading across the galaxy about what the humans and Princess Zarathax had accomplished. The Hegemony Council speaks for galactic stability, Ambassador Corinth insisted. This cooperation threatens the natural order. What natural order? Demanded Admiral Kresh of the Iron Fleet. The order that says species must never help each other. The order that keeps us weak and divided? You are all being deceived, Thexlar said desperately. The princess has been contaminated by primitive thinking. Have I? Zarathax asked. She began to glow again, but this time with calm, controlled energy. Let me show you what I have truly learned. What happened next shocked everyone, even Sarah. Zarathax began to change. Her crystal body reshaped itself, becoming more complex, more beautiful than any Veltar form ever seen. But she was not just using her own power. Somehow she was channeling the cooperative spirit of the entire colony. The energy signatures of human determination, creativity, and hope flowed through her crystal structure. She had become a bridge between species, a living symbol of what cooperation could achieve. This is what I have become, she said, her voice now carrying harmonics that spoke to every species present. Not less than Veltar, but more. Not corrupted by humans, but enhanced by their wisdom. The transformation was visible to every ship in the fleet. Even the most traditionalist crew members could see that this was not corruption, but evolution. High Counselor Thexlar stared at the transformed princess for a long moment. Finally, his energy form dimmed. You are no longer Veltar, he said quietly. No, Zarathax agreed. I am something new. Something better, and I am not alone. She gestured toward the colony below. Every being here has learned to grow beyond their original nature. Humans have learned to channel energy like Veltar. Visiting aliens have learned human engineering. Together we are creating something that has never existed before. Captain Valandra spoke again. The Crystalline Republic formally recognizes New Sparta as an independent cooperative colony under galactic law. Any attack on this world will be considered an act of aggression against neutral space. Other captains began announcing similar protections. The galaxy's neutral powers were taking sides, and they were choosing cooperation over control. Ambassador Corinth realized his position was collapsing. The Council will hear of this defiance. Good, said Admiral Kresh. Tell them that the old ways are ending. Tell them that the future belongs to those who work together. One by one, the enemy ships powered down their weapons. Some turned and left immediately. Others lingered, their crews sending private communications to the colony. They wanted to learn about this new way of living. High Counselor Thexlar was among the last to leave. Before cutting the communication, he spoke to Zarathax one final time. You were always different, he said. Perhaps this was inevitable. Perhaps, Zarathax replied. But inevitability and choice are not opposites. I chose to change just as others can choose to learn. After the fleet departed, the colony celebrated late into the night. But Zarathax found herself standing alone in the workshop, where she had learned so much. Sarah found her there, looking at the tools and machines that had changed her life. Any regrets? Sarah asked. Only one, Zarathax replied. I wish it had not taken me so long to understand. Understand what? That becoming more than you are is not about gaining power. It is about learning to use the power you have wisely. Over the following months, New Sparta became a center of galactic attention. Beings from hundreds of species came to learn about cooperative technology and integrated communities. The colony grew from a small human settlement to a thriving multicultural city. Zarathax became the colony's first director of interspecies development. She taught other aliens the lessons Sarah had taught her, that limitations could become strengths. That understanding was more valuable than power. That working together created possibilities that no single being could imagine. But her greatest achievement was not what she built or what she taught. It was what she proved to the galaxy. She proved that change was possible, that ancient barriers could be overcome, that cooperation could create wonders that surpassed anything achieved through dominance or separation. Most importantly, she proved that humans possessed a unique gift, the ability to help others become more than they ever thought possible. The galaxy would never be the same, and in the end, That was exactly what Princess Zarathax had always dreamed of, even when she did not know she was dreaming. She had found a way to change the universe, not through power or politics, but through the simple act of learning to see through human eyes. The 100 days of her sentence had ended, but her real education was just beginning.